The courtroom smelled like old wood and broken promises. 10:23 a.m. on a Tuesday morning, and I was about to testify against the three people who were supposed to protect me more than anyone else in the world. My mother sat in the defendant's section, perfectly composed in her navy suit. My father beside her, jaw clenched. My older sister wouldn't even look at me, but the worst part wasn't that they'd stolen from me. It was that they'd convinced me, for 17 years, that I was crazy for even suspecting it. Let me take you back to where this started. My grandmother, my father's mother, passed away when I was 6 months old. I never knew her, but apparently she knew me well enough to leave me everything, her entire estate, $847,000 in assets, a trust fund set up specifically in my name to be accessed when I turned 18. I didn't know any of this until I was 17. Growing up, we lived modestly. That's the word my parents always used. A small 3-bedroom house in a quiet neighborhood. My sister Olivia and I shared a room until I was 14. We shopped at discount stores. Every birthday, every Christmas, my parents would give me this speech about living within our means and the value of hard work. Meanwhile, Olivia got a car for her 16th birthday. A used Honda, sure, but still. When I asked why she got a car and I'd have to save up for one, my mother touched my cheek gently and said, "Sweetheart, your sister has been so responsible. When you show that same level of maturity, we'll discuss it." I was getting straight A's. I worked 20 hours a week at a bookstore. I babysat on weekends. But sure, I was the immature one. There were other things, small things that didn't make sense, but I pushed them down because questioning your parents feels like betrayal when you're a kid. Like when I needed $200 for a school trip to Washington, D.C. my junior year. A trip that would have looked amazing on college applications. My parents said we couldn't afford it, but 2 weeks later, Olivia got braces. Purely cosmetic, her teeth were already straight. $4,500. Or when I got accepted to a summer program at UC Berkeley for high-achieving math students. Full scholarship except for housing, $600 for 6 weeks. Life-changing opportunity. My father sat me down at the kitchen table, his reading glasses perched on his nose, and explained carefully why it wasn't feasible. Too far from home. Too much responsibility. Maybe when I was older. Olivia spent that same summer in Europe. A graduation present before college. 3 weeks. How much did that cost? I never asked. I was learning not to ask. My guidance counselor, Mrs. Patterson, noticed. She was this tiny woman with gray hair she wore in a bun and eyes that saw everything. Called me into her office in September of my senior year. "Ava," she said, sliding a packet across her desk. "MIT is recruiting students for their early admission program. Your math scores, your grades, you're exactly what they're looking for. But the application fee is $95, and there are some additional costs for portfolio submission." My stomach dropped. I'll have to ask my parents." That night at dinner, chicken casserole, my mother's specialty, I brought it up. Casual. Light. Like I wasn't holding my breath. "MIT has this early admission program. Mrs. Patterson thinks I should apply. There's a fee, but if I get in, the financial aid package for someone with my scores would be MIT?" My father set down his fork. "Ava, be realistic." "I am being realistic. My SAT scores are in their range. My GPA—" "It's not about scores," my mother interrupted gently. Always gently. That's what made it so effective. "It's about fit. MIT is very intense. Very competitive. With your anxiety—" "I don't have anxiety." "Sweetheart, you had a panic attack before the SATs. "I was nervous. That's normal. And I still scored a 1,540. Olivia laughed. Actually laughed. "MIT isn't for people from families like ours, Ava. You have to have connections, resources. Maybe look at state schools." She was going to Stanford, on my parents' dime. Something snapped in me. Something that had been bending for years. "Why does Olivia get everything?" The words came out before I could stop them. Why does she get a car and braces she doesn't need and trips to Europe and Stanford, and I get told we can't afford a $95 application fee? Silence. The kind that feels like pressure in your ears. My father's face went red. That is incredibly selfish, Ava. Your sister worked hard. So do I. I work 20 hours a week. I have a 4.0. I've never asked for anything. You're asking now, my mother said quietly. And frankly, this entitled attitude is exactly why we're cautious about giving you too much too soon. You're not ready for that level of responsibility. I left the table, went to my room, cried into my pillow so they wouldn't hear. 2 weeks later, I was looking for stamps in my father's office. He kept them in his desk drawer, and I needed to mail a letter to my pen pal in Japan, a friendship I'd maintained since 8th grade entirely through my own effort and money. The drawer stuck. I pulled harder, and it came out completely, contents spilling across the floor. Papers, bills, receipts, and a folder marked Ava Trust Documents. My hands shook as I picked it up. Inside, bank statements, legal documents with my name on them, my grandmother's will, letters from a law firm. I read every page, some of them 3 times. The trust had been set up when I was 6 months old. Current value, $923,000. My grandmother had been wealthy, something I never knew. She'd left everything to me, specifically with clear instructions that it was for my education, my future, my independence. My parents were the trustees. They'd been controlling it since I was a baby, and they'd been using it. $15,000 withdrawn for guardian expenses every year for 17 years. Olivia's car, purchased with a check from the trust, her braces, her trip to Europe, her Stanford tuition payment, $28,000 right there in black and white from my account. My MIT application fee? $95. Less than what they'd spent at a restaurant the previous month, according to a receipt in the same folder. A restaurant they'd gone to with Olivia for her 20th birthday. While I was working the closing shift at the bookstore, I took photos of everything, every single page. My hands were steady now, cold, steady. I waited until Olivia went back to Stanford. I wanted this to be just us. Just the family that was supposed to love me. Sunday dinner, pot roast, my mother's second specialty. I put the folder on the table, right next to the mashed potatoes. I found these. My father glanced at it. His face went pale, then red, then pale again. Ava, you've been stealing from me for 17 years. That is not... My mother's voice was sharp. Then she caught herself, softened it. Sweetheart, you don't understand how trust works. As your parents, we're entitled to reasonable compensation for... $15,000 a year isn't reasonable compensation. Buying Olivia a car with my money isn't reasonable. Paying for her college with my inheritance... We've made investments on your behalf, my father said. His lawyer's voice. He was a real estate attorney. He knew exactly how to sound authoritative. The trust has actually grown when you turn 18. It's grown because of market conditions, not because of anything you did. And you've taken over $300,000. For Olivia. For yourselves. While telling me we couldn't afford a $95 application fee. My mother's eyes filled with tears. She was good at that. After everything we've done for you, raising you, providing for you, with my own money. You ungrateful little... My father stood up, stopped himself. Sit back down. Your grandmother left that money in trust because she knew you couldn't handle it. She trusted the U.S. to make the right decisions. Then why did the trust document say it was for my education, my future? Why did she specifically write that it shouldn't be used for anyone else's benefit? Silence. My father recovered first. That's what lawyers do. Ava, I think you're having some kind of episode. This paranoia, these accusations. Maybe we should make an appointment with Dr. Reynolds. Dr. Reynolds. The family therapist they'd sent me to when I was 15, after I'd gotten emotional about something I couldn't even remember now. He'd diagnosed me with adjustment disorder and put me on medication that made me foggy and compliant. I stopped taking it after 6 months. Never told them. I'm not paranoid. I have documentation. Bank statements. Withdrawal records. I've already sent copies to 3 different people, so if anything happens to these... Happens? My mother's voice broke. What do you think we are? We're your parents. We love you. You stole from me. We raised you. My father slammed his hand on the table. The pot roast jumped. We fed you, clothed you, put a roof over your head for 18 years. You think that's free? You think you don't owe us anything? Not from my inheritance. Not from money my grandmother specifically left for me. Your grandmother barely knew you. You were a baby. She knew you, though. The words came out cold. Maybe that's why she left everything to me. Maybe she knew exactly what you'd do with it if you had the chance. My mother flinched like I'd slapped her. My father stood up. You need to leave. Now. Before you say something, you'll really regret it. I'm not leaving. This is my house, too. Actually, he said, his lawyer voice back in full force, it's our house. And you're 18 in 4 months. Maybe it's time you learned about the real world. They locked me out of their bedroom, out of my father's office, changed the password on the family computer, but they couldn't stop me from going to school. And Mrs. Patterson took one look at my face on Monday morning and pulled me into her office. I told her everything. She listened, didn't interrupt once, and when I finished, she opened her desk drawer and pulled out a business card. This is my sister. She's a family law attorney. She does pro bono work for cases like this. Cases like this happen? More often than you'd think. Mrs. Patterson's expression was grim. Financial abuse of children by their parents. It's more common when there's a trust involved. Call her today. I called during lunch period. Attorney Catherine Patterson, no relation to my guidance counselor except by blood, had a voice like gravel and honey. She asked questions, took notes, asked if I had documentation, photos of everything. Good girl, email them to me. I'll review and call you back within 24 hours. Don't tell your parents you've contacted me. Don't engage with them about the trust. And Ava? Yes? This isn't your fault. You know that, right? You didn't do anything wrong. I started crying. Right there in the school hallway, the phone pressed to my ear. Catherine moved fast. Within 3 days, she'd filed for an emergency hearing, petition for full accounting of the trust, request for immediate injunction to prevent further withdrawals. My parents received the paperwork at 4:47 p.m. on a Thursday. I was at work. My mother called me 17 times. My father is 12. Olivia, who they must have called immediately, sent a text. What the fuck is wrong with you? I didn't answer any of them. Catherine had instructed me to stay with a friend. I'd asked my coworker Zoe, 22, living with 3 roommates, barely making rent, but she took me in without hesitation when I explained. Your parents sound like assholes, she said, making up the couch with clean sheets. Stay as long as you need. The hearing was scheduled for 9 days later. In those 9 days, my parents tried everything. Emails about how hurt they were. Texts about family loyalty. My mother showed up at the bookstore crying, begging me to stop this madness before it destroys our family. You destroyed it, I told her, when you decided Olivia's comfort was worth more than my future. She left. Olivia tried next, caught me after school. You're ruining their lives, Ava. Dad might lose his job over this. Mom's having panic attacks. Is this what you want? To destroy your own family? They destroyed me first, for 17 years. You're so dramatic. You always have been. They gave you everything. They gave me the bare minimum while giving you everything I was supposed to have. Did you know your car came from my trust? Your Europe trip? Your Stanford tuition? She went pale. I didn't. They never said. Because they're liars and thieves. And you benefited, so you never asked questions. She walked away. The hearing was in family court, smaller than I expected, fluorescent lights, uncomfortable chairs, a judge who looked tired before we even started. My parents had hired a lawyer, expensive suit, Italian shoes, the kind of guy who makes $500 an hour. Catherine wore a simple black pantsuit and carried a banker's box full of documents. The judge, Honorable Diane Foster according to the nameplate, reviewed the initial filings. Then I looked up. Mr. and Mrs. Harrison, you're the trustees of your daughter's inheritance trust, established by the decedent grandmother. The trust is valued at approximately $923,000. Ms. Harrison is alleging misappropriation of funds. Your response? Their lawyer stood. Your Honor, My clients have managed this trust with the utmost care and responsibility. All withdrawals were legitimate trustee fees and expenses directly related to Ms. Harrison's care. $15,000 annually for 17 years is $255,000 in trustee fees alone, Catherine interrupted. That's 27% of the trust's current value. The standard trustee fee in California is 1 to 2% annually of assets under management. My clients have invested significant time and effort. Then there are these. Catherine opened her box, started pulling out folders. Vehicle purchase, $12,000. For the older daughter, Olivia, not the beneficiary. Education expenses, $28,000 for Olivia's Stanford tuition. Travel expenses, $8,500 for Olivia's trip to Europe. Cosmetic dental work, $4,500 for Olivia. None of these expenses benefit Ava. All withdrawn from Ava's trust. The judge's expression changed. Is this accurate? My father's lawyer hesitated. Your Honor, in families, it's common for resources to be shared. This isn't a family checking account. It's a designated trust with a specific beneficiary and specific terms. Judge Foster looked at my parents directly. Did you use your daughter Ava's trust funds to pay for your daughter Olivia's expenses? Silence. Mr. Harrison? My father cleared his throat. We made some decisions that benefited the whole family. Ava would have benefited indirectly. That's a yes. The judge's voice was ice. Continue, Ms. Patterson. Catherine did. She had everything. Every withdrawal, every expense, every lie. She'd gotten the trust documents. My grandmother's original will, which explicitly stated the money was for my education and future independence, and that under no circumstances should these funds be used for the benefit of any other family member. My grandmother's words, from beyond the grave, protecting me. The judge's ruling took 11 minutes. My parents were removed as trustees immediately. A professional trustee, a bank officer with no personal connection, was appointed. Every dollar they'd taken inappropriately had to be repaid with interest, $327,000. They had 90 days. But that wasn't all. I'm also ordering, Judge Foster said, her voice carrying the weight of someone who'd seen this too many times, that Mr. and Mrs. Harrison cover all of Ms. Harrison's legal fees, and I'm awarding punitive damages of $50,000 for breach of fiduciary duty. My mother sobbed. My father's face was stone. Furthermore, the judge continued, I'm referring this case to the district attorney's office for potential criminal charges. What you did to your daughter wasn't just a civil matter. It was theft, fraud, and elder abuse of a minor. I hadn't expected that. Catherine squeezed my hand. Ms. Harrison, Judge Foster looked at me. I'm sorry this happened to you. I'm sorry the people who should have protected you most chose themselves instead. But you're incredibly brave for speaking up. Many people in your situation don't. I couldn't speak, just nodded. 6 months later, I'm sitting in my dorm room at MIT, early admission, full scholarship, plus money from my trust to cover living expenses comfortably. My parents pleaded guilty to lesser charges, avoided jail time, got probation and fines. They had to sell their house to pay me back. I try not to feel good about that. Mostly, I succeed. Olivia and I don't talk. She sent one email 3 months ago, said she was sorry, said she didn't know, said she hoped someday I could forgive them. I haven't answered yet. Maybe someday I will. Mrs. Patterson retired this year. I sent her flowers. She sent back a card. Proud of you. Go change the world. Catherine and I have coffee sometimes. She told me about her first case like mine. Her own sister stolen from by their parents. That's why she does this work now. How many families are like this? I asked her once. More than anyone wants to admit. Parents who see their children as resources, as investments, as ways to fund the life they want for themselves or their golden child. How do they live with that, knowing what they did? Same way people live with anything. They tell themselves a story where they're the victim, where you're ungrateful, selfish, cruel for holding them accountable. They convince themselves they deserved it. Here's what I want you to know. If you're listening to this and something sounds familiar, You're not crazy. You're not ungrateful. You're not selfish for wanting what's yours. If your parents are treating you differently than your siblings, ask why. If they can afford things for themselves or others but not for you, ask where the money's coming from. If you have an inheritance, a trust, a college fund, know your rights. Get documentation. And if you discover what I discovered, tell someone. A teacher, a counselor, an attorney. Don't protect the people who are stealing your future. My grandmother left me that money because she wanted me to be free, to have choices, to build a life on my own terms. My parents tried to take that from me. But here's the thing about the truth. It doesn't disappear just because people want it to. It waits. And when you're ready to fight for it, it fights back. I'm Ava Harrison. I'm 18 years old. I'm studying mathematics at MIT, and I'm free.